Since my 7.62 rifle suppressor just got out of ATF jail, I am looking at suppressing two of my AKs. I figured I would share my experience and findings as I go through this process. I hope to provide a clear and detailed explanation of the issues with running a suppressor on an AK-style rifle. The two AKs I want to run suppressed are this Zastava M90 chambered in 5.56 and this Wasser 10 chambered in 7.62x39. When putting these rifles together, I did keep in mind that I wanted to run them suppressed eventually. The suppressor is the Dead Air Sandman S with the key mount mounting platform, for which I have compatible muzzle devices on both rifles. There are two primary issues with suppressing any AK, and that is bore concentricity and what to do with the gas system. First, let's discuss concentricity. People talk about this a lot when mentioning suppressing AKs. There is a saying about suppressing comm block AKs: you want baffle strikes, because that's how you get baffle strikes. This refers to the concentricity of the threads on the muzzle where the suppressor or muzzle device attaches and the bore of the barrel. AKs are prone to having issues with this. The cylinders in question are the cylinders created by the threads on the outside of the muzzle and the bore of the barrel where the bullet travels. Cylinders have a center axis. For cylinders to be considered concentric, the axes of the two cylinders need to be collinear, meaning the same line. There are a couple of ways these central axes of the cylinders can be misaligned. The two differently shaded cylinders are offset from one another, but still parallel. And in this case down here, you can see that the center axes of the cylinders are at an angle. They do have a point where they cross right here. In both of these cases, these two cylinders are not concentric. For this example, let's make a simplifying assumption that the suppressor is being directly threaded onto the muzzle and that these threads are a perfect match and there's no play between them. This is supposed to represent the barrel, and the dotted line is the center axis of the barrel, the path that the bullet will be following. So this top one shows the threads of the muzzle may not be concentric with the bore of the barrel in a way that the axes are still parallel, but they're offset. This one shows rather than being parallel and offset, they're not parallel, and the two center axes cross in a place, around the muzzle here. Both these illustrations are exaggerated for clarity, but it's pretty easy to see how the bullet might be interfering with the bore or the baffles of the suppressor in either case. Now, throw the play between the threads back into the mix, and that can cause even more misalignment issues. There are suppressors that account for this misalignment, like the Dead Air Wolverine, where the baffles have increasing hole diameters. They get further away from the muzzle, creating a cone, which I have illustrated here. This allows for a certain amount of misalignment of the suppressor to the bore without risking a baffle strike. Muzzle devices designed for the AK that offer a suppressor mount generally index off the face of the muzzle in an attempt to minimize the effects of misaligned center axes or play in the threads. However, you then rely on the muzzle face being perpendicular to the axis of the barrel, which is not always the case. You wouldn't want to press the muzzle device or suppressor up against the sight block, as there is also no guarantee that this surface would be perpendicular to the axis of the barrel. You can see here there's a gap between the back end of my muzzle device and the front of the sight block because this particular muzzle device mounts up against the face of the muzzle. What we normally see is a shoulder machined into the barrel profile right behind the threads, like on an AR-15, which is a great way to ensure alignment with the muzzle device or direct thread suppressor. Successfully running a suppressor on an AK requires a bit of luck, unfortunately. When mounting a suppressor on an AK, it needs to be checked with the bore alignment rod to make sure it is aligned well enough. I have heard as a general rule, if there's a minimum of 15 thousandths gap between the rod and the end cap, you should be good to go. So let's take a look at the two AKs I want to suppress. First, the easy one, the Zastava M90 5.56 down the 7.62 bore of this suppressor is like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. So this setup will be very, very tolerant of misalignment. I did throw a cleaning rod down there, and it looked about centered, so I'm not worried about this at all. This is a key mount JMac muzzle brake, and it does mount up against the face of the muzzle threads. I've found that this Zastava rifle is of very high quality. I would not expect misalignment of these threads. Okay, onto the Wasser 10. These are notorious for misaligned threads. I have a bore alignment rod, which is just tight tolerance tool steel rod from McMaster-Carr. This only costs $9. The part number is 8893K217. The OD on this rod is $295. There is variance in 762 bores, so a smaller rod may be needed. Part number 8893K216 is 5 thou smaller diameter. In my opinion, there's no reason to spend 40 bucks on an alignment rod. I am also using a face mount muzzle device on this gun in an attempt to hopefully butt up against the face of the muzzle and keep it perpendicular to the axis of the barrel to account for any misalignment and play in the threads. As you can see, with the suppressor on and the alignment rod in the bore, the rod is touching the end cap. Uh-oh. So I think on the Sandman suppressors, the baffle bore is a bit bigger than the front cap, and the baffles get wire EDM'd after they're welded to maintain concentricity with the key mount at the back. They may not be perfectly aligned with the bore of the front cap, so let's pop this front cap off and see how close the rod is to the baffles. They don't ship these cans with a front cap tool anymore, which is a bummer, but I was able to 3D print my own, so that's pretty sick. And it works great. Nope, still touching. So I can say with almost certainty that the bullet will be kissing the baffles on the way out. I'm not okay with that, so I will not be shooting this rifle suppressed. Could you shoot a few rounds and see if it opens up because there is minimal interference? Yeah, but I'm not going to. Including the tax stamp, this bastard was $10.50 and I had to wait 155 days for it, so I ain't risking shit. If the rod wasn't touching the baffles and was only barely touching the front cap, I would probably just shoot a few rounds and open up that front cap bore and call it a day. So that means I did not get lucky with this Wasser 10. That also means that either the face of the muzzle is not perpendicular to the long axis of the bore, or the alignment of the threads is far off enough with the bore, and the plane of the threads isn't great enough to allow the muzzle device to be brought into alignment by butting up against the muzzle face. Could I fix that? Yes. Do I want to be troubled with that? Not really. AKs aren't like an AR where I could just pop the barrel out and throw it in a lathe and face the muzzle. I suppose I could pull the muzzle device off and re-index it one way or the other slightly and see if that helps, or I could take it all the way off and carefully file the muzzle to the correct angle. However, if the threads are off on the barrel, that requires a new barrel or significant machine work. Maybe I'll get bored and tackle that issue one day, but for now, I'm just not going to run this rifle suppressed. Regardless of the unused suppressor mount, I do really like this muzzle device, so I got that going for me. Okay, on to the next big issue, the gas system. Most AKs are overgassed out of the box. They slam the bolt back really hard and fast into the rear trunnion and send the empties 40 feet away. This is to ensure reliability, and they are reliable, but with a suppressor, that just means they will be really, really ridiculously overgassed.
Really ridiculously.
The gas system needs to be tuned down for suppressor use. This Zastava M90 comes with an adjustable gas regulator out of the box, but the lowest gas setting on it still cycles my lowest power 223 ammo. So it's too much with a suppressor. I shot it suppressed on the normal gas setting to confirm this, and it functioned reliably, but it was overgassed just like I thought it would be. It was sending the empties about 20 or 25 feet away. The gas regulator could be modified by welding up the existing holes and drilling new ones, or mill and drill it to make a new position. Or you can get a new 5-position gas plug from some dude on Reddit. That's what I did. The guy's Reddit username is Yamaha Warrior 89. I saw his post on the Zastava Arms subreddit and sent him a DM to buy one. It only costs $90. The machine quality is top notch, and the positions have laser engraved numbers. Positions 3, 4, and 5 correspond to the factory 1, 2, and 3 positions. Settings 1 and 2 are further reduced gas for suppressor use. First, I tried 223 ammo on gas setting 2, the higher gas suppressor setting, and it wouldn't quite cycle reliably. The gun was pretty dry, so I popped the bolt carrier group out and lubed it up. After that, 223 cycled great on gas setting 2. I confirmed that 223 wouldn't cycle on gas setting 1, that just turned it into a single shot. I then tested M855 and M193 556 on gas setting 1, and it was right on the edge of reliably cycling, but not quite there. Gas setting 2 works great for 223 and 556 with this suppressor. I only have 250 to 300 rounds through this, so maybe once it gets worn in a bit more, it will cycle 556 on gas setting 1. Maybe that setting would be for higher back pressure cans or hotter ammo than I have. In any case, I have 2 suppressor settings on this gun, and I couldn't be happier with how it performs with the suppressor. If you're going to run your M90 suppressed, I highly recommend this gas plug. I will link to the Reddit post I found. I love to see individuals identify a gap in the aftermarket offerings and step up to fill that gap and offer their solution to others. I try to support people who do stuff like this as much as possible, and I would encourage you to do the same. The gas system on the Wasser and the majority of AKs is fixed, so you could install a K&S gas piston like I've done on this one, and that's going to be the cheapest and easiest way to tune the gas on the majority of AKs. This is an aftermarket piston that replaces your stock piston at the front of your bolt carrier group. As you screw this collar down, it opens up the holes on the side here, and that allows gas to bypass the piston. Even if you're not running a suppressor, I highly recommend the K&S piston. It can really calm down the recoil and help your gun not beat itself up. I considered the K&S gas piston for my Zastava M90, but I don't believe K&S offers a size that fits these. I was thinking I could install the piston, turn down the gas a bit, and then still have my 3-position adjustment up here, and it would be better suited to use with different ammo and the suppressor. Another option is having a competent gunsmith who's experienced with AKs dial in the gas system specific to your needs. They can install adjustable gas blocks, play with port sizing, or any number of other things to match your ammo and suppressor. I hope I have explained all that well and in a way that may be helpful to a few people out there. Now to some shooting footage of the suppressed Zastava M90, because that's the only one I can run suppressed. Thanks for watching.